Hey, what's up, everyone? Happy Wednesday, or I guess I don't know what time I'm going to put this up. It's Logan Senhauser here with Sheila, the ChampCar Miata. I know it's been a minute since I've given an update, but I wanted to, give an update about what happened at AMP and a little bit of an update about the team, and then actually today, I'm going to install a bit of a cold air intake on the Miata. So actually, I'll tell you what, I'm going to install the intake and then I'll talk about AMP after. But basically what we're doing is we're taking the intake for the motor from the hot side where the headers are and like all the exhaust gas is coming out of the motor. And we're moving it to the intake side where it's a little bit cooler. You know, cooler air is a little bit denser, and hopefully we're hoping to make a little bit more horsepower is the theory. And it cleans up the engine bay a lot. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the hood popped, get everything started here, and check back in. So with the hood popped here, you should get a better idea of what I'm talking about. You've got air filter here, exhaust headers right there. That's you know, it gets really hot on this side of the motor. What I'm planning on doing is using a 90-degree elbow, and then using the airflow meter or whatever. Can't remember what this sensor is called, but placing that sensor right here, and then the air filter right here next to it. You have to do a little bit of wiring finagling, extend some wires, which I'll show you in a sec. But like I said, a lot cooler air over here just because it's the intake side. I mean, it's still hot, you still got a hot motor in here, but it's just a lot cooler than putting it right next to the headers. So I'm gonna go ahead and disassemble this K&N intake and catch up in a sec. Okay, intake off. So again, I already had this K&N intake. It's really just a tube and the filter. So if you don't already have a filter, you're gonna have to order a filter. I'm gonna use this, what is this called? I want to call it an airflow meter, but I feel like that's not right. But basically this sensor that tells the engine how much air is coming into it. You need those two things. And then you need a 2.5-inch elbow, which goes here. So that goes there. This goes here. And then you need a couple of these tiny little, I'll show you when I have it installed, but a filter, because this is like a, it just like relieves pressure on the valve cover, and it goes into your intake, and there's a little nipple right here that a hose goes around, but most people just replace it with a breather, which is what I'm doing. And again, I'll show you what that looks like after I get it all installed. So I'm gonna get it all put on here and check back in. All right, quick update before I start it. I had to trim down the U band, the silicone U. If you can get one that's a little bit more compact, that's better. You can see mine's kind of stretched and it's not all the way over. It's a little bit jank. So I think I'm gonna see if I can get different one of these guys. Because the other thing too is this opening on the air temperature sensor. This is the IAT, I think. I don't know these things. I just work on it. This is a little bit bigger than a 2.5-inch. I'm not sure what size it is, but it's a little. So it's 2.5-inch here, good. But you need something a little bigger. I was able to stretch it and make it work, but it was a lot of effort. And then I had to trim it down to get the air filter in place. And the hood does close, I checked, but you'll notice coolant expansion tank is not in the vehicle, and that's because it should be sitting, like the intake overlaps with it maybe an inch and a half. So I'm gonna have to get either an aftermarket overflow tank or maybe stick a energy drink can right here and just zip tie it to something, or that shouldn't be too hard to figure out. But my question right now is, actually, other thing, again, I think this is air intake temperature sensor and this is flow, like mass airflow or whatever. I don't know the proper terms for these, but I did have to drill a hole for this, and I used a Christmas tree bit. It didn't really work well, and you don't need a huge hole. I think I overdid it. I'm not really sure. Again, I think I'm gonna try and redo this section, but because the hole was kind of shit, I RTV'd this sensor in, and I'm thinking that'll be good enough. I might revisit it. I might not too sure yet. I'm gonna see how it runs and go from there. So now I'm gonna start it up and Cross my fingers. All right. Power on. Still stuffing it from the race. Oh, other thing, I put the breather filter on there, just this little tiny guy, so nice and easy. All right. See what happens. Key in. Power on. Okay, the first stall is normal. That always happens. Heck yeah, man. There you go. So I do want to try and route this wiring just a little bit better. It's not terrible, but see, I'm going to stop the car, or I'll step away. I'm going to let it warm up a little bit, because I want to check the actual intake temps from the sensor, the OBD2 port. But I want to do the wiring a little bit, but like I said, the hood shuts and it looks good. It clears up a lot of room on the right side of the motor here. I mean, like, all of this is just empty space, easy to diagnose. I don't know what we would diagnose on this side of the engine, but clears that up. Like I said, air filter's over here now. Got to figure something out for the coolant overflow. But yeah, actually worked out pretty well. So I can't feel any obvious leaks. So thumbs up for me.
Hey everyone, I just wanted to do a quick outro to the video. This is the next day. As you can tell, it's daylight out now. And then I just have, this is the video from AMP. This is like the last stint that I did of the weekend. The cell reception was pretty crappy at this track, so this video is pretty spotty. But since I'm about to talk about the race, I figured I'd throw it on there. If you enjoy it, you enjoy it. If you don't, you don't. We go live at pretty much every race we do. We live streamed every race this year. You can find it on this YouTube channel. And if you're interested in live streaming stuff or anything like that, feel free to reach out to me, leave a comment or whatever. But also, My Race is Live. They used to be known as Early Bird Racing. That's who does this overlay for us. And I can't recommend their service enough. They're really good people over there. And really passionate about what they're doing, and it's a great way to share with your family. Sponsors is huge. I can share this video with our sponsors, and they're not racers, but they still, like, because of this overlay, they can get an idea of what's going on, even though the race isn't being live streamed. And like I said, most of the time, the camera quality, we generally stream at 480p just to try and minimize dropouts. So you can see the camera quality. It looks a little worse here, just again because of the really, really bad cell reception. You'll see it drop out and whatnot. But yeah, so that's the live streaming. But anyway, so obviously the air intake install went surprisingly well. We'll have to see if it changes our air intake temperature sensors. I didn't want to warm the car up last night. So I pretty much after I shot that last clip, I packed up. But what I can do is when we make it out to the track next year, I can see, based on our data log, what our air intake temperature sensors were from last season, and compare them to what we're getting, whenever I make it out next year. And obviously, like, temperature differences, whatever else, but maybe we'll still be able to ballpark it, or maybe it won't make a difference. I don't really know. But it's what I see a lot of the fast teams doing, and the science makes sense to me. So we'll see. But anyways, just to recap AMP, it was a really fun weekend. We threw the car together pretty rapidly, just because the big semi and trailer setup that we use is actually, it's not ours. It's not mine. It's one of our drivers, Andy Dahl. He has a YouTube channel called Everything Wheels 13. Check him out. He does a lot of Datsun content. And he just puts out cool, fun little videos every once in a while. But that's all his stuff, and he only was able to make it out to Watkins Glen this year. Otherwise, he's been flying around. His schedule's kind of sporadic, so he hasn't been able to make it racing with us. And this was the last race this year that he was going to be able to make it to. So we did everything we could to really make it out there and make this happen. So that's kind of why we ended up at AMP, kind of last minute. We scrambled for about 2 or 3 weeks. The clutch was slipping at Mid-Ohio. I figured out I didn't seal the flywheel bolts, which you need to do on Miatas. I never knew that. So one of the flywheel bolts was actually leaking oil onto the clutch surface and causing that slip. And that's also why we thought we were burning oil at Mid-Ohio. It turns out it was all just leaking out into the transmission. So so we did that. I went ahead and put a not new transmission, but our spare transmission in, because third gear is pretty bad on the one that we had in it. And the one that I put in it for AMP, it's in a lot better condition. Fifth gear is a little crunchy, but nowhere close to as bad as third gear is. And fifth gear is arguably less important than third gear. But yeah, so we scrambled to get that done, made it to the track, which was awesome. The drive really wasn't that bad, again, because we have that nice RV semi thing that makes the drive pretty easy. I don't know that I've talked about that much on the channel, but if you look at our Instagram, Sennhauser Racing, I post about it on there every once in a while. It's a really nice setup. So anyways, we get down to AMP, we go out on Friday, and we get hit with a noise violation. They have a 98 dB at 50 feet, noise restriction. Even though it's still a rural area, but I guess the city has a noise ordinance on them. And so we got hit with a noise violation, and of course, in the pro shop there, they sell a silencer for $80 that you can, throw in your exhaust. But I think we have 2 1/4-inch exit on our exhaust, and all they had was 2 3/4-inch is what we have, but they had a 2.5 inch and a 3 inch, so we had to go with the 2.5, and then we used self tappers to attach it to the exhaust. I didn't have high expectations, but I was hoping it would work good enough. But of course, by the end of the race on Saturday, we lost it. But it was good enough. Friday, they said it quieted it down enough. It sounded exactly the same to us. But, they were checking it, and they said we were good for the weekend. So, we go out on Saturday, and no noise violations or anything. The race was going really well. We were looking for, I think, a 4th in class. I can't remember where we were at overall, but we were feeling pretty good. And then somehow, I don't know what caused it or what the failure was, but we lost 3 of the 4 right rear wheel studs. So one of our drivers actually did a full lap on one wheel stud, and he came in, and you could just see the wheel just wobbling around the axle when he was pulling into the pit box. So that ended our race about an hour early on Saturday. Just a little bit of a bummer, but it was a mechanical failure, something we hadn't seen before. I'm not running ARP extended studs. There was a reputable eBay seller that I bought my extended studs from. So I think what I'm going to do is replace everything with ARP. They were sold out when I was looking to buy mine, so I was like, I'll get these and then maybe replace them with ARP in the future if we have issues, and now we've had issues. So I'm going to get ARP wheel studs all around, and then keep the what's left of these eBay ones as spares. And then so that ended our race on Saturday. Of course, did the walk of shame up and down the paddock, and people had parts that they were willing to share with us, which was awesome. And then on Sunday, we hit the ground running. We had, we were racing really well. Everyone was, within 0.5 of a second of each other's lap times. We were being very consistent. Everyone was having a ton of fun. It was a little wet at the start of the race, so we had a quick spin, but nothing major. And it was going really well. And we were, I think, 4th in class, getting ready to take 3rd, and 10th overall. And we get hit with a noise. Oh, I guess, so we did lose our silencer on Saturday. But then, again, doing the walk of shame up and down the paddock, someone had an extra silencer. They actually gave to us for free. I don't even know what team it was, but whoever, thank you. I never got to tell them thank you because I didn't even get the part. Someone else, did the smooth talking to get that. But we were able to get a new, actually better silencer installed that actually fit our exhaust, and the car actually sounded quieter. So anyways, that's how we fixed that problem. However, on Sunday, like I said, we were running really well. We were doing a 4 stint strategy on Sunday, and like my pit window was open, but it was about like an hour and 15, hour and 30 into my stint, and we get hit with a black flag, and I pull in, and I'm like, hey, is everything? I'm thinking the car's broken or something's flying off the car, and he's like, no, you guys got hit with a noise violation. And I'm like, we've been running all weekend. Like, I didn't say this to him. Obviously, you never want to argue with the pit worker. But I pulled it into our stall, and luckily we were within our pit window. So I was like, let's swap drivers, and we're gonna throw the new driver in, and we're just gonna short shift by like 1,000 RPM. So we must be right on the limit if we've been running all weekend with no issues. So we'll short shift it, and that'll get us to the end of the race, and we won't lose that much time. But like I said, it was really frustrating because we had been running since we fixed it on Friday with no issues, and all of a sudden they decided that they wanted to change their mind and get upset with us about it. There are arguments made that like the cloud cover was denser, so it made the noise reverberate more or something. Whatever the argument is, I get that they have policies to follow. However, I don't know. I wish there was. I would have liked to know earlier on in the weekend so we could have fixed it. And we checked with them on Friday a bazillion times after we put the worst silencer in, and still, didn't get a no. They were like, you're good to go. And I was like, for the weekend? They were like, yes, for the weekend. So it's just really frustrating, again, because we were going to place really well. Mazda pays us out. And any Mazda racer that's using their logos, Mazda will pay you out in this series for a third place or better in class. So we missed out on that money. We missed out on what would have been our first podium that we actually earned in class. We got a second place this year at Nelson Ledges, but we didn't even finish the race. It's because everyone else broke before us, so I don't really count that one. This would have been our first earned podium, at least in class, which would have been really cool. It's just not a fun way to leave the track, because it's not a failure of the car. It's not a failure of the way I prepped things. It's a rule that I guess you could argue I failed to quiet the car down, but like I said, we ran the whole race and had no issues, and then all of a sudden they decided our car was too loud after all of Saturday and another like 6 hours on Sunday. So definitely frustrating, especially because it was a drive, and I could go on and on about it. But like I said, the weekend was a ton of fun. The car performed really, really well. The only issues were the studs, which again I'm already trying to combat that. The cages I installed, I used like crimp connections on them, so and they were kind of hastily put in there. So by the end of the weekend, under hard braking, they would shut off and come back on, which was a little bit annoying, but not the worst. And there was one other thing. Oh, on Saturday, the injectors were sputtering again, or the engine was sputtering again, coming out of turns every once in a while, like every few laps, mainly turn one. So we replaced the injectors again, and that seemed to fix everything. I'm still not really sure what was causing that, but like I said, we ran all day Sunday with no issues. So I guess. Yeah, so that's the summary of the weekend. Like I said, there were lots of ups, a few downs. All in all, it's fun. AMP is a really cool track, especially with Miatas. There's a really fun right-hander that's like under heavy compression. You come downhill, and then it's like heavy compression, and then you go uphill, and it's just like a ton of fun. It like shoves you into your seat, and there's so much grip there. It's really fun when you get it right. And actually our splitter was worn down, kind of pointy on the left side from bottoming out through that turn so many times. But that's why we make it out of plywood. So yeah, like I said, it was fun. But with the noise restrictions, it's going to make us hesitant to go back to this track in the future. It's really frustrating to run the whole weekend and have it cut short based on a change in heart for how noisy a car is. I don't, and they wouldn't tell you how they were taking those data points. They wouldn't tell you where they were taking the data points. So who knows if they're doing it in a like repeatable fashion. Maybe someone's just holding a DB meter. How do they know what car it's coming from? Like, there's a lot of different question marks around that. And I don't want to say that what they were doing was unprofessional, but without knowing how they're testing it, and with the sporadic, sometimes you're okay, sometimes you're not, kind of behavior of it, it makes me think that it's they were just kind of guesstimating. And it's a track where like all these garages are full of fancy Lamborghinis. It's a private track, so Lamborghinis, purpose-built race cars, like all of these cars that are loud cars, a lot louder than a 1.8 liter Miata. And for them to own a garage at this track and go driving, you would have to think driving on this track, how are they getting around this rule? So, like I said, it's all just kind of frustrating, but it's all part of the game. So we're learning. We learned more this weekend, and like I said, I try and pass that information on to you guys. So I think I've been rambling for a while. If you stuck around this late, thank you for watching. This was our last race of the season. I need to replenish my wallet a little bit, and we want to take some time to really upgrade the car. The one thing we're really still down on is power. I mean, you can see even this Miata in front of us is pulling away from us coming out of T1. So, the other Miatas and other cars obviously still have a little bit of power on us. There's that S2000. That thing was nuts. So, we're going to do headers, aftermarket ECU, and get it dyno tuned over the winter. That was part of the reason I did that intake, was so, maybe we can squeeze a little bit more horsepower when the car's a little bit hotter. So we're trying to do a lot of little things to squeeze the horsepower out of it. And then, I've got a laundry list of other little things we can do. A big brake kit, creature comfort mods, I think it's IRP, makes a really good short shifter that places it right next to the wheel. And it's just really stout. Maybe if I can get some data, like actual data logging in the car, not just Track Addict on my iPhone, that'd be kind of cool. So, we'll see where my money runs out this winter. But we're excited for next year. We're looking to hit either NCM next season for our first race, but they just announced it as a championship, which adds weird formatting, and who knows what that race is going to look like. So we might forego NCM and end up just doing Gingerman in April. NCM would be in March, so we're still trying to figure that out, but we're trying to hit 4 races minimum again next year. I think that's a good number for kind of how much money we're all willing to spend right now, and we do have some sponsors that are in cahoots of coming back on again next year, which would be awesome. But yeah, so I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna shout out the sponsors. As always, KFP Total IT Solutions. They're based out of Europe. If you need any IT stuff, look them up. They do really good work. Spencer Technologies. They do IT stuff more based in the U.S. I think they're based out of Florida. They're really good people there too. Raynostics Imaging, they do a lot of like medical device imaging equipment. So if you're watching this and you need some medical imaging, they're really good people there as well. And then obviously the self-plug, Logie Bear Sound and Lighting. I do weddings, I do bars, a little bit of everything. If you need sound equipment rental, like I said, weddings, nightclubs, I do it all. I've been DJing for going on like 7 years, I think, at this point. So reach out to me, Logie Bear 614 on Instagram. You can find my email, all that stuff. And then Everything Wheels, Mr. Dahl, he puts a lot into the car. Like I said, we beat the crap out of his trailer and RV. So huge shout out to him. Check him out on YouTube if you haven't already. Let's see who else we got on board. I think that's the main gist of it. But yeah, comment, subscribe. Like I said, I'm always looking for inspiration for these videos. I'm gonna try and get some more out over this winter. But comment any questions you have, any advice you're looking for. Like I said, we're still learning as we go. But if I can share advice or knowledge with someone, I'd love to do that. So yeah, thanks for stopping by. Subscribe, like, comment, all those things. I'm gonna stop rambling, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.